What's a job that's romanticized but in reality sucks? Veterinary medicine fantasy. I get to work with puppies and kittens reality. A 3-month-old kitten died in my care. I've seen so much gore and blood and neglect. I've sent animals home with invasive cancers because family can't afford treatment. I've been the only comfort shelter animals knew before they left this world. It is a specific and exhausting kind of pain, and it isn't really talked about enough. People who say they couldn't do it because of the euthanasia have no idea. Edit. Thank you to those of you who were kind and respectful. I will not be interacting anymore, as recounting some of this is a little emotionally exhausting. But I'm going to plug this link for anyone, vet med or not. gnomv.org. Have a good night everyone, and be kind to all living things. I strongly suspect being a spy doesn't involve half as many high-tech gadgets and spontaneous sexual intercourse as I've been led to believe. Edit. Thanks for all the awards, smile, and wow, the way my inbox just blew up, you'd think I'd started an OnlyFans. One former member of the CIA said the most unbelievable thing about James Bond was that he never had to file an expense report. Super boring and lonely. Keep your head down with your local, usually shitty, job you're placed in and write reports at night. For years. Typically never leads to anything. This is what I imagine the asset we have in Berlin is like. Wait your whole darn life for a call on a burner phone to assassinate a rogue CIA agent. In the meantime, grind Val. Edit. Spelling. Might explain why those assets are all about that attempting assassination in movies. At that point they're willing to kill or be killed just to have something to break up the monotony. Architect. You think you'll be designing big fancy iconic buildings. Warehouses, Walmarts, strip malls, and shitbox apartments all need architects, and that's probably what you'll end up doing. I always wanted to pretend to be an architect. Art Vandalay? Apparently lifeguard, because nobody can find them anymore. Computer game development, especially testing. That is the ass end of an industry that is mostly ass. I was gonna say video game development, too. People think it's all about creativity, and making something cool and fun, when the reality is a lot of bullshit. Treat M like shit, use M like toilet paper. Indie game development. When it's just you and barely enough people to fill your car, that's amazing joyous fun. AAA game development is where hope, happiness, and creativity go to die. You're burned at both ends, wrung out of every ounce of joy you have ever had, and used like a 10-year-old cumsock. And management doesn't care, because they open their door, and there are 1,000 kids willing to fight a bare-knuckle brawl just for the interview. So why should management care about you? You want joy in game dev? Do it yourself. Source. Worked for a commercial during the Super Bowl. AAA game dev company. I will suck dick for food before I go back to that life ever again. My brother in game dev, I felt every word of that. Thank you. So all of the jobs then. Oh, you hate your job? There's a support group for that, you know. It's called Everyone. We meet at the bar. Everyone used to think it was awesome that I worked in live sports TV. 70% of the people I worked with were miserable pricks with overinflated egos, and then there were the athletes. I knew several people that worked at my local TV station. They all basically said I got 5 minutes of training, and then I was editing the live news with no other instruction beyond if you screw up, you're fired. Apparently the turnover rate, both voluntary and otherwise, was brutal. People take TV way too seriously. Too seriously for me, at least lol, it's really pretty frivolous. Most, not all, jobs in the environmental sector. Pay is usually quite low. You tend to work in very ugly places, landfills, contaminated sites. You are expected to get jobs done in half the time you really need with as few resources as possible. And if you are consulting for other companies, nobody really wants to be working with you to save the environment. They generally are just trying to barely meet some regulations. Edit. There are definitely exceptions, as some commenters have pointed out. Some people find a niche that works out very well for them. Just sharing my personal experience and that of other environmental professionals I have known. Edit number 2. I don't mean to discourage anyone who really wants to pursue an environmental career, but I also really wish that I would have learned some of the negatives, in my comment and the many replies, before I began mine. As a result, I only lasted a few years as an environmental consultant and basically started over in a completely new field. I was going to say something similar. I used to work for a conservation charity many years ago, taking volunteers out to do environmental work. Tree planting, tree felling, dry stone walling, coppicing, pollarding, hedge laying, you name it, all in some really beautiful places around Yorkshire. It was brilliant for a long time, but it's hard work when you're doing it every day. On top of the getting the jobs done on time, we had to look after volunteers, train them, make sure they were using tools right, and keep them motivated to come back tomorrow. We had some jobs that were so rough that we tried talking volunteers out of coming along because they'd never come back if they did. When you're on the 4th day of horizontal rain on a windswept hillside in the middle of nowhere, you're down to 3 volunteers who are losing the will to live, and you know that hedge you're laying is going to be dead come summer. It really gets you questioning your life choices. Weird thing is, I'd do it all over again if I was young enough. But I'm also glad that I'm not. Journalist. Expectation. I'm gonna be the next Hunter S. Thompson and write compelling feature pieces with a unique voice and get paid to travel the world. Reality. Talking to my editor about how my contact from the cat fashion show won't call me back or do an interview unless we pay them $80 or adopt 2 cats. What kind of cats we talkin'? Ones with clothes. Game tester. I worked as a game tester for EA for almost 3 years. Here's what it's like. Imagine a game type you don't like. Maybe soccer games. Maybe an RTS. Whatever. You now play that game, 8 hours a day. But you don't play it. You test it. So let's imagine an RTS. You are told to test the resource acquisition systems. All you do is click around and make sure your guys can mine gold and harvest lumber. You click around the map and mine and forest. There is no combat, they've turned that off for your testing. There is no story, because you just flick from level to test the resource system. You test using 1 guy. You testing using 100 guys. You make sure no other units can gather resources. You try blocking your own guys. You try killing your own guys. 8 hours a day. Every day. For weeks. You enter dozens of bugs. They put out a patch that fixes the bugs. You have to retest every level and every bug to make sure they're all fixed. That's game testing. Lawyer. Number of historic, life-changing, precedent-setting cases participated in. 0 number of angry, self-entitled, abusive clients wanting to screw each other over. 842 number of pages of paperwork that sucked up free time and social life. 84,836. Cook, shit pay. Toxic work environment. Shitty hot working conditions. Megalomaniac incompetent management and owners. Long shitty hours. Working every weekend and every holiday. The only people you will see regularly are your coworkers. And most people descend into alcoholism or drug abuse to cope. Most people get into it because they're passionate about it, and most bosses will take advantage of this. I spent 10 years in this field. I walked away with nothing other than the knowledge I gained, then had to re-enter to workforce at the bottom at the age of 30. Been out 5 years now, and started making more money and working less hours within a year. I wish I'd left sooner. This one I wholeheartedly agree with. Was in the kitchen for years cause I loved food and learning to cook new things all the time. Then the burnout happened real quick. Overworked and underpaid. It started taking my sanity and definitely did a copious amount of drinking and shit. Now, I am a bartender and weirdly enough, I drink way less than I used to. Also, I make more money and work less hours. I just wish bartending had health insurance. Working on a film. If your crew, it sucks. Long hours for what seem like very slow progress on the picture, lots of standing around waiting, etc. You arrive well before everyone else and leave after everyone else. If this is an indie production, you also may have to big chase down for your pay at the end of each week. Oh, and when the film wraps, you're now unemployed. I'm a sound FX editor and have to say, post-production is much more forgiving. Love my job. I probably wouldn't last long on a set though. Post-production is the little hidden gem of the entertainment industry. Nice air-conditioned office, no crazy travel, ability to work from home, less gossip drama. Most editors I know are older, mature, experienced, just want to get home to their families. You don't see many people, etc. It's great. Shitty when you're a young girl who is an A, but after 10 years of grunt work experience being abused, once you land that union job, you know the technical ins and outs, it's all worth it. I went to film school almost 2 decades ago. Everyone I know either went into editing or switched industries. It takes a special type to want to be on set at 40. From what I've understood, being a cowboy is really awful. Gunslingers and bandits too. Literature often portrays them as folk heroes who wore flashy, studded suits and gun belts and traipsed around towns like they owned them, striking fear into civilians and lawmen alike. However, The reality of the matter is that these guys were nothing more than common criminals and fugitives who were always on the run, could never settle down and relax, and often had only a rope or bullet to the head to look forward to at the end of their incredibly short lives. Or tuberculosis. Or lumbago. That's a slow and painful death, my brother.